Hi guys, good afternoon. It's John from LookSmart Home Inspections right here in New Jersey. And we're going to try a little bit something new today. We're going to answer one of your questions. And the question is, what can a home inspector not tell you? And I thought this was an interesting question because most of what people ask is, what can a home inspector tell me? This is a little bit different. What can't a good New Jersey home inspector tell you, during a home inspection? I guess we have to figure out what a home inspection is first. So in New Jersey, a home inspection is a visual, non-invasive inspection of the subject property, right? We're not opening walls, we're not dismantling ceilings or systems. We're performing a visual inspection, and that does have some, certain limitations for sure. But, we're here in New Jersey not to tell you to buy the house, to not buy the house. Uh, is that a good price? Should I ask for money off of the deal? That's not our role. Our role is to give you the information necessary so that you can make a good decision about the house you're buying for you and your family. It's not actually to execute the real estate contract. It's not to negotiate. It's not to determine, pricing or negotiate repairs. We're educational people. We provide information. Our years and years of experience help you to make those decisions, but we don't actually make those decisions for you. So we can't tell you whether to buy the home. And this is an interesting one because we don't know. We're just meeting you. Maybe we spoke to you on the phone for a few minutes. We scheduled the inspection. We met you over at the house. We performed the home inspection. So maybe I know you for 3 hours, 3.5 hours, something like that. But I don't know your financial wherewithal. I don't know your experience in dealing with home problems. I don't know if you're handy. I don't know if you have people in the trades in your family. Like we're there to give you just, understand the information that the house is telling us. But it's not right for us, a New Jersey home inspector, to tell you, hey, this house is not for you. Or, hey, this house is a great house. I think you should snap it right up. That's not really our role. And I really try to avoid that whenever possible. Now, look, there are times where I've said, be careful. I don't want you to get in over your head on this house if you purchase this home. And that's just more of a gut feeling thing. Maybe I'm working with somebody who I just get a sense of really they're just in over their head, and the problems in the house are just simply compounding. And so then and there, I would certainly go a little bit above, but I would never tell a person not to buy a home, or this home isn't for you, or yes, you definitely should buy this house, hands down. Because I don't know you, and I don't know what your background is, and I don't know your finances. And it just wouldn't be right for me to do that. So I think that there needs to be some boundary there regarding that, in terms of home inspectors here in New Jersey telling a client, yes, you should buy the house, or no, you shouldn't buy the home. Certainly, we're there to provide a lot of information, and we can answer questions, but we're not there to do that. You're the one buying the home. I'm not the one buying the home. And you know your circumstances for sure. And then the next thing is, pulling me aside and asking me, does this home, would you pass this house or would you fail the home? What is this? What am I grading this home against? Is it it's uncertain. I can't make that determination. And it's not we shouldn't be doing that as home inspectors in New Jersey, regarding, does this house pass and fail? So in other words, if that toilet wasn't loose, the house would pass. Or, if I had, maybe five major problems instead of four, the house would fail. or if I only had 3 major problems, the house would pass. What are we gauging? There's no key to gauge that too. So I try to do my best really to stay away from that. I really want to be professional in the field and just provide the information so you know what the right answer is. And also, people ask me, letter grade. Would you A, B, C, D, or F? Or I can't do that. I'm not, I don't know regarding what. Maybe this house is an F for someone, but maybe it's a B for someone, depending on their background, depending on their finances, depending on their goals, depending on, have they been have they been a past homeowner? Are they familiar with older systems? There's a lot that goes into it. So we're just not able to tell you, letter grade. And, another one is that if your daughter was buying this home, would you go ahead and buy the house? That's not really a fair question, and I try to stay away from that as well. Like, no house is perfect, right? Every house that a good home inspector is going to go into, right? And our job is to find the problems. Yes, we point out positive aspects of the home too, but really our job is to tell you what's going on in the deficiencies in the home. And, very few houses, and I've inspected thousands, have no deficiencies, right? I mean, you're talking really a unicorn. Even a brand new house has something that I'm going to find. It may be small, but it's there, and then we're going to find it. But there's nothing that's, perfect. So you just really, when you think about, having a home inspection and, deciphering the information and digesting it, you really have to use that information for your own point of view, for your own, plot in life. And then you can really make a good decision. And you guys are smart. You'll make the decision that's right for your family. And what decision you make may not be ready, the decision that's best for the next guy or the next girl. It's just, you have to really, it's a person by person thing. And the next thing that a home inspector can't tell you is if you're paying too much or as if the house is a good deal. I'm not scouring the real estate market. That's not my forte. I'm not looking at price. In fact, I hardly look at price. I mean, when I set up a home inspection, I'm not asking for the price of the house or trying to figure out what the price is. That's your job. The market sets the price. Your real estate agent would be really the one to guide you in the market price of the home, Now, a home inspection may bring to light some problems that may not be reflected in the price that you're purchasing, but that's really up to you, your agent, and your attorney to sort of go back and negotiate. As a New Jersey home inspector, I don't really know if it's a good price or not. I kind of have a feel for pricing because I'm in a new house every day and I kind of see some things and, I come across the listings. And yes, I do have a little bit of knowledge. But as far as, pinpointing, this house is $30,000, over what it should be, I don't know. I mean, the housing market here in New Jersey is absolutely bonkers and not in a good way. And it's hard to buy a house, and I get it, and I live it every day. So I understand the concern about overpaying for a home, but as a home inspector here in New Jersey, I have no idea if you're overpaying or not. I don't have the comparables in front of me. I'm not doing a market analysis. That's really for your agent to decide, and for the agents to kind of work out. And the next thing a New Jersey home inspector won't be able to tell you is the things that the seller should fix, because I'm not privy to the contract, right? We're providing information to you, and I can't tell you that the seller should fix X, Y, and Z. Maybe the seller will fix X, Y, and Z problems in the home, but maybe the seller won't. And, maybe that's something you're just going to have to come to terms with. And if they don't fix, some of the major issues, maybe you find another home. But maybe you don't. And maybe you're okay with, going in and fixing the problems, that we find, during the home inspection. So it's really impossible. Like, I can tell you that, there's issues in a home and these are the issues. What I can't tell you is the seller should fix those issues. That's really a point of negotiation. And, my understanding is that everything can be negotiated in most cases. Now, some of the contracts that we have currently here are limited in scope. But, there's some vagueness there. What falls under structure? What falls under environmental? What is a safety issue? So, if you're going to narrow yourself down, and I get it, you want your offer accepted, but just understand that you're going to be pretty limited in what you can ask for after the home inspection. And many times the home inspection just really becomes a sort of a knowledge for you in terms of what's going on with the house. And another thing a New Jersey home inspector won't be able to tell you is what's going on between the walls, floors, and ceilings, right? We don't have X-ray vision. So we're not going to be able to tell you definitively what's happening behind those installed finishes. Now, we might have clues. There's always some clues, right? Is there a water stain? Is there mold? Is there a soft drywall? Is there evidence of a past issue? Is there air leakage? Is the floor warped in areas? So yes, there certainly are clues. But going back to our initial discussion, a home inspection is a non-invasive inspection. So I'm not there, with a drywall saw opening up the drywall in a bedroom to kind of flesh out what's happening with the stain. I'm not there with my pry bar trying to, remove some flooring to look underneath it. The seller, number one, is not going to allow us to do that. And number two, that's not what a home inspection is. We're not there to take or dismantle anything apart. And we don't do that. Now, certainly we take the cover off a panel box, we take the cover off a furnace or a boiler. We're there, and we can certainly open a crawl space door if we had to. So yes, there are certain things that we can remove, such as panels and that type of thing. But we're not going to take your furnace apart. We can't take your boiler apart, HVAC, cut a hole in the wall, the ceiling. That's just not what we're there for. And, clues are there. We have thermal imaging that we can utilize that's sometimes helpful. We have moisture meters, which are sometimes helpful. But just know that your home inspector does have some limitations. And if I can see through the walls, I tell you what, if I had that skill, we would definitely be making more money than we are for now, for sure. So we can only see what's readily accessible and available to us to see. And the next thing, sometimes questions asked to me, and as a home inspector here in New Jersey, I don't know when something's going to fail. I can tell you that, hey, this boiler is old. It's 32 years old. It's exceeding its life expectancy. I see a lot of rusting. I see a lot of, problems inside the burner area. But I can't tell you it's going to last another 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I don't have that ability, and no home inspector in New Jersey really has that ability to tell you. We can give you information for sure. Hey, this is an old boiler. It's got these problems, and you should budget for, replacement, sort of near term. And then, you can get a boiler technician or HVAC technician in to, look at that equipment. But I've seen just crazy bad equipment that's rusted, in poor condition. You wouldn't think it would last another day, and that ends up lasting 5 years. And then I have pristine equipment that runs beautifully during the time of the home inspection, and that equipment, maybe 3-4 years down the line is completely defunct it doesn't, it has to be replaced. And a lot has to do with maintenance for sure. But, I just want to tell you that's one of the things a home inspector won't be able to do is definitively tell you how long that equipment's going to last from this point in time that we did the home inspection, into the future. Can we ballpark the roof? Yeah, sure. I can ballpark a roof, but that's not definitive. I don't know if there's going to be a storm that rips off 12 shingles, next week. I have no idea to know that, So we are there at that point in time. And I think that's really an important take-home message. We give information at the time of the home inspection. The house is telling a story at that time, that we're doing the home inspection, And you guys have to understand, some equipment doesn't last forever. It doesn't last, forever. Manufacturers, they want to sell water heaters, boilers, furnaces. If they had, products that were, over-engineered and indestructible that lasted 20, 30, 40 years, there would be no market for their stuff, right? So everything has a finite age. Everything else, everything will break if it's a mechanical system. Anything in a home, they wear out. Roofing wears out. Equipment wears out. Even electrical components wear out. Doors, windows, they wear out. And they need to be replaced. So the role of a home inspector here in New Jersey isn't to definitively tell you, hey, you have for sure, 3 more years left in this boiler. It's not possible. It's just not possible. So the next thing also is that, people ask me, can you guarantee that my basement won't get water? No, I don't. I'm only there for 3 or 4 hours. There's clues, 100% clues, absolutely clues around the basement. Home inspectors, we can look for a multitude of clues in the crawl space and in the basement. But, if we do see water stains, it's difficult to understand the age of that stain, Is the stain a few weeks old, a few months old, a few years old? It's really hard. And then the seller is not going to really genuinely provide information. So don't really expect the seller to be really coming across with any useful information. Now, I'm not saying they're going to lie, but what I am saying is you got to take everything that the seller says kind of with a grain of salt, because they're here to sell you their house. And if they don't sell you the house, that makes the transaction somewhat more complicated, and they may be up against a time, constraint for sure. So I don't know if your home in the future will get water. I can give you the clues that I see during the time of the home inspection, but I've inspected brand new houses, and in a year later, we've had a lot of storms, and then there's water in the basement. Right? So the sump pump maybe fails. They have a basement drain failure. They didn't close a basement window, right? We have a pipe leak. I don't know what's going to happen a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line with your basement. Maybe conditions around the outside of the home changed. And, did you actually correct any of the things that your home inspector said to be worried about on the outside? Maybe we haven't had the conditions that are necessary for water to enter the basement up to this point. But now we've had 3 days of soaking rain, and yeah, there's a problem, right? Because our gutters are now overflowing. Our downspouts are not discharging. We have water saturating around the home for multiple days, and the conditions are right. And can you get water? Yes, absolutely you can. But that's really up to you, sort of as a maintenance standpoint, to make sure you're actually doing and facilitating the recommendations that your home inspector has given you. We're not there just to, make a nice, pretty report. That report is there so you can actually act upon it and do the things in a proactive basis. So water is something, we don't really know the future. All we can do is make determinations by what we see currently in the basement or the crawl space, because we won't really be able to, if it's a beautiful dry day during the home inspection, I won't be able to recreate a significant weather condition. Maybe your roof leaks only when the wind-driven rain is coming from the west. That happens all the time, and it takes, 12, 15 months for that condition to come back. Now we'll say, hey, we see some water staining in the basement. Water staining in the attic around, say, the chimney. You should get this looked at. Looks like there was a past or present water leak issue here. And then it's up to you guys to really dig into that. It's not our job to now find the contractor to get up on there, to find the problem, to find the loose flashing, and to, fix the issue. That's really, up to you guys to certainly do that, And then, another thing is that we won't be able to see every environmental condition around home. You guys really should look into that a little bit further. Our job as home inspectors is not to pick out every single environmental condition. Yes, it's certainly advisable to look for underground oil tanks. It's advisable to test for mold. But, as far as, what those overhead wires are doing, 2 blocks away, and how it's affecting, the occupants of the home, or how that will affect your livability of the house, and will it affect the cost of the home later, I have no idea. I'm not doing that assessment regarding the overhead wires. So every environmental condition we're not looking at. We're going to do our best to give you the information necessary as far as the environmental things that you should dial in. But we're not there to do an environmental assessment of the home, and that's really something. If it's interesting to you guys, you should certainly do that. The next thing is, I can't see inside piping. I don't know what your waste piping in a home looks like. I don't know how much obstruction is in there. We're going to run the sinks, tubs, toilets, everything in the home. We're going to look for functional drainage, right? Is everything draining the way it should be? But there could be problems that we can't see inside the piping. And to give an example, inside the sewer line. That's why doing a sewer line inspection is super important, is because a home inspector is not going to be able to tell you what's going on inside the sewer line. The same way that I can't tell you what's going on with your kitchen drain line, Is that going to become obstructed? Is the seller having a problem with that drain line and just sort of doctored it up for the home inspection, and then when you come in, you're going to have a problem with it? I don't know. All I can do is do the best we can with what we have and what we can see. So that's another thing. We're not going to be able to see, inside those drain lines and inside the sewer line, And another thing that a New Jersey home inspector is not going to be able to tell you about is if these things were permitted inside the home. Was this addition permitted? Do we have a permit for a water heater? The electrical's been updated. Is there a permit? Now, yes, sometimes there's permit stickers on this equipment. But if there's not, that doesn't mean that permits were not opened and closed. That's really up to you guys, your attorney, to do your Oprah request and to make sure that you get that buttoned up, right? We need to make sure that all the new things in the home, the new electrical wiring, the kitchen renovation, if they're moved plumbing or electrical, the bathroom, same thing. They upgraded from 100 amp to 200 amp. We have a new water heater. Are these things, reflected in the tax documents with the municipality? And have they been approved with the municipality? And that's something that a home inspector on that few hours we're in the home is not going to be able to assess. We may be able to give you clues, because if we see some amateur, non-traditional work, say in a finished basement, as far as electrical, to give you an example, yeah, maybe this has, it doesn't look like they got permits, but I can't definitively say that. It's up to you guys. What I will say in the report is, hey, you know what? You should make sure that they have permits for this new basement electrical. If they put hi-hats in the basement, if they ran new electrical, if they upgraded the panel box per se, if they reconfigured the plumbing in the home. So all of these things require permits. Sometimes they are open and closed, and sometimes they're not. And sometimes they're never applied for to begin with, so they won't even show up on your Oprah. So you have to watch out for that also. So permits is another thing that a New Jersey home inspector is just not going to be able to tell you definitively about that. So our role as home inspectors here in New Jersey is to reduce uncertainty. It's not to eliminate uncertainty. Like, we can't go ahead and eliminate every uncertain thing in a house with thousands of components and thousands of systems. What we can do is help you digest and learn about the home and do our best to find the deficiencies. And we do that every single day. We work hard. We're out there in the field, all kinds of weather, all kinds of environments, trying to give our client the best job possible. So then you guys can, make a good decision, about the home. So my job isn't to convince you one way or the other to purchase a home or not. I'd like to see you buy the house. I may always want the transaction to go through. As long as it's right for you and your family. But if it doesn't work, that's okay too. As long as I can sleep at night knowing that I gave 110% to put my client in a position to understand properly the house, that they're thinking about buying. And I think that's very, very important. And so I hope this video helps just a little bit. I usually get the question of what you look for in a home. What are you looking for? But this is kind of a new twist, and I'm glad that I was asked this, is what a home inspector can't tell you. So hopefully that helps a little bit if you're buying a home. I know it's difficult. Please stay with it. You will find something, and it will work out. And I hope it does for everybody looking for a home here in New Jersey. I'm John from LookSmart Home Inspections. I do home inspections throughout the central and northern part of the state. If I can help in any way or answer any of your questions, please reach out. John from LookSmart Home Inspections. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you next time.